Hello, everyone. Welcome back. I'm one of your co-hosts, Rico.
I am your other co-host, Tony Borrego.
And this is the podcast known as Relatively Sound, the podcast with a death wish. Today, we are back with our album for album series. If you don't know what that is, Tony and I each give each other an album recommendation for the month. We give it at least 3 listens, if not more. And then we come here and record an episode talking about the album. Today, we are focusing on my recommendation to Tony, which is Jason Isbell on the 400 Units' most recent album called Weathervanes, an album that dropped just last month. It is a fresh, new album, and I'm very excited to talk about it today because last week we talked about new albums from this year, and I really wanted to talk about this album, but I knew I was going to be giving it to Tony for this month's album for album episode. So I just kind of kept my mouth shut, but today we're going to be talking all about it. Tony, do you have any really prior knowledge or, history with Jason Isbell?
I mean, honestly, not really, at least nothing significant. I know you've been a fan of him for some years now, and I know he's got a song called Flagship of the Fleet or something like that. I know he's like kind of a country Americano sort of dude, and especially as of recently, you've sent me some clips of the concert you went to. I do know he is a killer guitarist, but otherwise, I really don't have any background, prior to listening to this.
Yeah, my little background I'll give is I got into him when he released his album in 2013 called Southeastern. I think I only listened to it because it was just getting so much praise online. And I was like, I gotta listen to this and I'm like, I heard it was kind of country. He kind of like, he's in between some genres like country, Americana, folk. And that I would say with some of his more recent albums, almost just kind of rock. And I looked into his history. He's originally from a band called the Drive-By Truckers, and they are definitely more like a country rock than I would listen to. So I couldn't really get into their music, but listening to Southeastern, which is by far most people's favorite album from him, I enjoyed a lot of what I listened to on that album. Loved his songwriting. So then I started following him over the years, and he was getting to a point where he was like, each album he released, I just loved more and more. And I comfortably now will say he's my favorite modern day singer songwriter. And now that unfortunately Tom Petty's passed away, Gordon Downey's passed away, I think he's writing the best music out there today. At least that's what I think, my personal opinion.
So help me understand this. I cannot think of any other artist you listen to that is really dipped into the whole country thing. I mean, you could say Tom Petty, like Southern rock, a little bit, sure. Even Bruce at times, but this gets kind of honky tonk at points. So it kind of startles me that you really enjoy his work that much.
Well, because to me, it's like I don't think there's really a bad genre of music. There's just genres of music that I can't really get into so much, like maybe reggae or
Metal.
Maybe like metal and stuff. But there's always going to be bands and artists from those genres that I find talented. Hip hop and rap, not a genre I really listen to, but I've heard enough of, like, let's say Kendrick Lamar, where I could say I think he's probably by far the most talented, writer today from that genre. And it kind of goes with Jason Isbell. It's like, we both know and like Johnny Cash, but I don't listen to like the Keith Urbans or the Luke Bryans, and I'm not necessarily putting those artists
the Blake
down.
Sheltons.
I'm just saying I definitely can't get into their albums, their songs, their music. But Jason Isbell, I don't know. I feel like he's more than that. Especially with every year that passes, every new album he releases, I feel like he's less restricted and confined by the genres that people label him as. He's just writing and releasing music that he enjoys. And
so when you say that, do you mean like he's experimenting with more things, or do you just mean that he just sounds more like himself after a while?
Both. I mean, like I said, Southeastern is the album people love the most by him. and it's not in my top two. It's probably my third favorite of his solo albums, but there's two others. This one being one of them, the album we're talking about today, Weathervanes. Um, I much prefer that album to Southeastern just because Southeastern, I just feel like the whole album is very similar style, like each song. There's not as much variety. Where with this album, I feel like there's much more variety. So yeah, it's also him just kind of dabbling in different genres and stuff. So and I will get more into my opinions on this album as we talk about it. Because it is a brand new album too. So I want to be able to participate in that conversation that everyone else has been participating in for the last month. But as this being your first Jason Isbell album, what was your first overall reaction to it?
Well, do you mean as a whole or like when I first hit play?
As a whole, because I already know your first. I know the first song on the album is Death Wish, which was the album's first single, and I knew when you listened to it, you had texted me something like, wow, those vocals are like really upfront and loud. And I do want to point out really quick, this is the first album by him. Well, okay. Technically, the first album that he produced by himself, like his own album, was his previous cover album he did in 2021 called Georgia Blue. But this is like his first like album of original material that he wrote, that he produced the album by himself entirely. So I already know you didn't love some of the production on it, at least not on the first song. But I just mean, what was your overall reaction to the whole album?
So as a whole, I was a little bit confused. Not confused like there's a that this is the most complicated album in the world, but I was a little bit surprised, and in some ways it was exactly what I expected. So what I kind of mean by that is that the album actually kind of started off in the first half, the first couple songs in particular, being a little more pop than I was expecting in a way. Especially starting off with Death Wish, not to dive too much into the specific songs right now. And then in the middle, it got really kind of that like kind of that folky country, kind of homey feeling. And then the end of the album got a bit more rock, and I would almost even say like jam band in some points. So I was a little bit, like I kind of walked in and kind of did get what I expected, but it was kind of delivered in a unique way. It kind of like the album kind of transcended as it went along. I mean, do you kind of see the album like that, kind of having different hues as you go along, or is that just a me thing?
No, I mean, I definitely think the album, and this was, like I said, most people listening to this podcast who are Jason Isbell fans are probably like, oh, why didn't you give him Southeastern? Why didn't you give him Something More Than Free? Or why didn't you give him, other albums? But I want to give you this album because I do think there's like shades of different, genres. Like I do think some songs are like maybe are straight up rock, not even that much country. Then there's some that are straight up country and like kind of folk Americana. Then there's some that are kind of like in between both of those. And then you have some that are, like you said, kind of more jam. You know what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
They're more like a jam band. And some of them maybe get even, at least for Jason Isbell, a little bit like prog, a little experimental. So that's why I didn't want to give you Southeastern, because that one, I mean, I would say for most of his music, my favorite part about it is his lyrics. I think he's just such a great lyricist. But Southeastern, there's not a lot of moments where I thought you were going to be impressed by just the musicality of it all. So that's why I think this album is more impressive musically, but it still retains his great songwriting skills when it comes to lyrics.
Yeah, there is definitely some lyrics that, like, hearing them and then, like I try to do and you really wanted me to do, is when you go back and kind of read them with the song. There is definitely some that really hit me. And I think kind of overall, my favorite lyrics, not as a whole, but just the individual lines, definitely do come from Cast Iron Skillet. I really like the line where he's talking about like them being kids and he would shy away from the inside fastballs. Like, Yeah, I'm not even a sports guy, but that type of baseball reference I thought was like just super powerful, and I think that kind of captures the best lyrical moments for me on the album. A lot of his lyrics seem to, you can actually see what he's talking about, what he's describing.
Well, let's not
And
forget you played a little baseball growing up.
I did play a little bit. I try not to talk about that. Wasn't too good at it, but it was cool to be able to relate with that. I was definitely someone that did really shy away from those fastballs. Um,
I'm
but
I'm
also
glad
too
I'm
the
glad you got the lyrics to inside Cast Iron Skillet.
yeah, and the opening line's great. Don't wash the cast iron skillet. Don't drink and drive, you might spill it. Um, I felt like I really got to see a different side of Jason hearing this song. Not saying that he's hard to understand or anything, but it was cool. I feel like I
But
connected with him as an artist.
I do want to get in deep dive into some of these songs, and this is being one of the ones for sure because this is my favorite song on the album. I don't know if that's surprising
Really,
to you.
very.
Um, it is probably top three all time songs from him for me. Cast Iron Skillet.
Whoa.
Um, it is one where like it's all about the lyrics and maybe like the melodies. I mean, musically, it's just pretty much the same chord progression the whole song. The maybe the most like interesting part of the music is the accordion that starts the song and kind of backs the whole song.
Right, right. I
But
noticed that.
it's a pretty stripped back song, mostly just like acoustic guitar and vocals. But the lyrics are so good, and I just want to like spotlight some of them because you spotlighted some great lyrics, but I'm just curious if you kind of got what the whole song is about because, like you said, the very first line you get "Don't wash the cast iron skillet." This song, a lot of it has to do with like Southern traditions, and Jason Isbell's from Alabama, so like
Oh,
it's
that's southern as you can get, pretty much.
growing up, like he dealt with a lot of the topics in this song, and like one of them is like "Don't wash a cast iron skillet." Like that used to be a thing people would say because
That's still a
why?
thing.
Well, yeah, but Jason Isbell, he's even gone on record saying that like that's not necessarily true anymore. Like there are cast iron skillets that you can wash, and there are ways to go about washing them. But for the longest time, people would tell everyone don't wash cast iron skillet; it'll like ruin it. Um, but that's just one of the little Southern traditions in the song that kind of he's almost using as like a metaphor or an analogy because like um don't drink and drive, you first hear that line and you're like, oh, that makes sense, but then he says you'll spill it. Like that's the reason he's saying don't drink and drive. um and then like the first couple of verses before the second chorus, he's like describing this person who like killed someone else, like stabbed them, and the the guy ended up going to jail and then he ended up dying. um and then there is in the I guess the third and fourth verse after the second chorus, there he's describing a family, this daughter who marries someone that has a different skin color than her and her family, and her father disowns her because of that, which again is
Right.
something that growing up in the South, you know, when he was a kid, as I'm sure Jason dealt with a lot of that. And there's just some like hard hitting lines like, you know, how to get so low seemed like just a week ago she was sitting on your shoulders watching fireworks in the sky. And then I think like the hardest hitting line is it's hard to go through life without your daddy by your side. Um, so there's just and then not only that, and I know I'm going off on a tangent, not a tangent, but I mean I am going off, and I am going to let you speak, I promise. But um, if you notice the phrasing of both verses, the first and second verse, he does the same thing. He does the "How did you get so low" lyric when he's talking about the guy who stabbed someone else, and then when he's talking about the father. So he's like using both like stories and comparing them and showing how they're kind of very similar in stories, even though they're like about completely different people in a completely different situations. And that whole thing wraps up with the repetition of the "Don't wash the cast iron skillet" that he sings in every chorus.
I will say, as whenever we talk about lyrics on this podcast, I normally, pull them up on Google as well, just to really follow along. And normally when I listen to the songs, using the lyrics, I'll just go off of Spotify. But looking them on Google, they actually, the way they're separated with paragraphs actually really does help illustrate what you're talking about. So actually, I do kind of appreciate them. Like, obviously, I appreciate the lyrics, and I like these ones a lot on the album. But I actually can really see the parallels on now a lot better. So, and something that I liked about the lyrics, I actually just being a little more simplistic and focusing on the cast iron skillet part, is I like how, like you're saying, yeah, in the first one when they say "Don't drink and drive, you'll spill it," it kind of shows the culture of the town, the traditions, and then the second time they do it, "Don't wash the cast iron skillet. That dog bites my kid, I'll kill it." It really sets a different tone, a stronger one. That was like, when I first heard that, I didn't necessarily get the whole story about like the killing necessarily on first listen, but when I heard that, I kind of felt the tone change in the song a little bit, which was actually pretty effective, pretty cool to hear it, hit like that.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's really about the emphasis sometimes.
right. Okay, I do think the lyrics are definitely, maybe the best on the album, especially now that you've kind of helped piece it together for me. But musically, like, I mean, don't get offended here, but it kind of feels like one of those Frame songs where the music is just boring. It's just very bland compared to some
You're
other.
talking about the Irish band, The Frames, right?
Yes, just the
Okay.
Frames.
Yeah, it is like,
it's not bad music, but
you're comparing it to like even maybe like a Glenn Hansard just song where it's like it's really about the lyrics and the performance, but sometimes the music is just kind of more basic. And I agree with you. I would not say this is the best song musically on the album. By far, I would not say that. In fact, it might be even lower on the list. Like,
yeah, I literally think it's
just
bottom three. Yeah,
but
musically,
lyrically, it's just it does. I mean, and there's so many great lines too that are just like statements. Like, don't ask too many questions or you'll never get to sleep. There's a hole inside you, fill it. Don't walk where you can't see your feet. Don't ask questions, just believe it. Even that when, she found love and it was simple as a weather vane, but her own family tried to kill it. Like, they're just, every line is so thoughtfully, like carefully thought out. And there's like not a wasted word or sentence, but like you said, like, yeah, musically it is very, I mean, there's like little bits of other guitar and, a little bit of, fiddle in there, from his wife and stuff like that. But, yeah, it's musically, it's not the most mind blowing.
Well, I'll say this: this is definitely the most passionate you've been so far on this podcast. You've already made cases to defend against for anything that I'm going to bring up to these songs. You were prepared for this, and believe me, I came in with a list of notes for every song. So no, we're really gonna duke it out here.
I mean, that's the one that that was the one I was like going to defend the most because it's my favorite on the album. And it's been kind of a hit or miss. I've noticed with some fans or just some people, like it's one you either like because the lyrics are either relatable or the lyrics are just, you think they're like perfect, like me, or it's going to be a song where you're like, it's a little forgettable. I'm not a lyrics person. So musically it's a little boring and whatnot. And, so I can understand if it's not someone's favorite, but it is my favorite. And probably so far it's my favorite song of the year.
Wow.
Yeah.
Even over Exhausting Lover?
Oh my God. We're not talking about that. Again.
So
what was the song that musically did pique your interest? Since this one was not one musically that was going to ever do much for you.
There was actually quite a few moments where I was like, wow, this is really cool. And I don't mean really cool for Jason Isbell. I mean, I don't know his work, but just if any artist did this, my ears perked up. Especially because, and we'll talk about this later, but I didn't love the first two songs. So by the time we got to the third song, and you hear that he's like the whole verse is constructed with alternating measures. It goes like a measure of 6, 2 measures of 4, a measure of 6. That's a very cool sort of it's musically interesting, but it feels natural. It does not feel forced. And throughout
we're talking about Strawberry Woman?
Yes.
Okay.
And throughout the album, he kind of does this technique. He like plays with measures of 2. So I believe I try to write notes out for all the ones I had it. So Strawberry Woman, he did that. Save the World, he also did that. And he had really nice voicings on the chords for that. If you insist, he even threw it in there, and that was one that I thought was kind of underwhelming at first. But there is, little nice details like that that really enhance the song, show his strength as a musician and songwriter. And yeah, I mean, me, I know I'm a little more into playing music than maybe you are, but that's something that I really did like about this album is there were those details that did not take away or distract from the song, but that really um, enhanced them.
Okay, well then I do want to ask you a question, and this might also be something our listeners want to hear. Can you explain just a little bit more in depth what you're talking about with the measurings? Like if I'm looking at the lyrics, like for Strawberry Woman, are you talking about if you break up like are you breaking up the first verse like right down the middle, like after the first two lines?
Yeah, let me see here really quick. So it's like all throughout the verse, the way he structures it. So it's when the chord changes happen. So when he says the first line, yeah, there's a woman blowing through the laundromat. In between the next line, he puts like a measure of two to. It's a little hard to explain just on the fly.
I see what you're saying. Like, so in the second line, in the middle, he'll change the chord again.
Yes. So okay, it's kind of like an unexpected chord change, but he does it to push forward the song.
I see.
So
yeah.
I feel like a lot of times, especially with, I'm not trying to, summarize all kind of country Americana music, but a lot of times you'll hear strumming and it kind of goes on a long time. There's a lot of space between the lines, but he's kind of narrowing the gap. It keeps the song pushing forward, and it kind of keeps my interest. And so I don't know. For me, Strawberry Woman was a lot easier to get into. I think my only real complaint with that song is actually the term Strawberry Woman. There's nothing in the song that really explains why she's a strawberry woman. I'm not sure if that's like a Southern phrase I'm not familiar with. I'm sure you have a backstory about it, maybe.
This one I actually don't. I am looking at something right now on genius.com about it. If someone else asked me too, I think it was Lindsay, she asked me what is a strawberry woman. I actually didn't have the answer, and I still might not.
We have a whole research team here going for this episode.
Yeah, I mean, I think of it as more as like as a phrase, and not like a throwaway phrase, but like it's really everything else that he's describing that's more important than like just the phrase strawberry woman.
Right.
I don't know if it's like the same person through every verse. This song is a weird one for me because it's what I like, but this is like the one song on the album that to me is like one he could have written in his sleep. Like it is like musically, it's one of the more kind of basic songs, not as basic maybe as like Cast Iron Skillet, but it's nice and breezy and it's like an easy listening song. And there's some great lyrics in it. He's got square-toed boots, but he ain't for real. Wouldn't last 5 minutes on a pedal steel. Like that's a great line.
Yes, I did write that one down. I did like that one a lot.
You were thick cut bacon on Texas toast is also a great line.
That one might be a little bit of a stretch, but
but to my point, like I feel like this song he's almost making fun of some country kind of like imagery. Like describing someone as bacon on Texas toast, or pointing out square-toed boots and pedal steel, like cowboy. He says, the young man crying in a cowboy hat. Like I don't know, this song, it definitely feels like it's almost he's like playing up those tropes a little bit. That at least that's my interpretation of the song. But it also has imagery that I know some people are going to relate to for sure. And like I said, I don't think it's a bad song whatsoever. It just doesn't interest me as much as I would say a lot of the other songs on the album. But it is a very nice, easygoing song. But it's a song, like I said, that it could have been on pretty much any of his albums. It doesn't feel as special as some of these other songs. So I'm a little surprised you liked it because.
Well, let's not get too carried away here.
Well, I said liked it. I didn't say love it.
I did say that I did really like how he did the how he did the measures in the song. Yeah, like the phrasing, timing of it. But I still wasn't really sold on this album yet. I liked it, and I liked that it was different than the first two songs. We can talk about those later. But I will say that one of the lines I really liked in here was the highway straight and the night so still, barely have to touch the wheel. I think that was the first lyric that like I was like, oh yeah, yeah, he does hit hard. Like that was a cool line. It's
Yeah,
simple, but it's something about it's special.
yeah, it's like a relatable line to a lot of people, and it's something that like I'm sure that's been said before, but then you can't think of a time, and you're like, wow, he just really
Right.
pointed out something that is can be very universal to a lot of people, but the way and it's like the third verse in the song too, so it's like he I think starts the song off with some of the more funny verses, and then by the end he's like, singing lyrics that are a little bit more hard hitting.
Yeah, yeah. No, no, that I agree with that. I feel like I did kind of notice that throughout. Even though some of these songs just are pretty heavy from the beginning.
So then
Um,
what point in the album did it kind of change for you? Because you kind of said, well, and we'll get back to the first two songs, but the first two weren't your favorite. Sorry Woman you appreciated, but wasn't maybe so your style. So where in the album were you kind of like starting to pay more attention?
okay, yeah. So I'll say this. So the first two songs were kind of I couldn't really get into them. And then Strawberry Woman in Middle of the Morning, they were refreshing. They felt different than the first two. Um, Middle of the Morning, I didn't think it didn't blow me away or anything. Not that I have to be blown away to like
Not
a
even the
song.
vocals, because I think the vocals in Middle of the Morning are fantastic.
They felt for some reason they seemed a little shouty, a little maybe mildly too shouty for the song.
Oh no,
But
see
no,
that's
but
what I
it did
liked about it.
stand out. But I really liked the energy of the music. I thought it was like kind of happy sounding. I liked the warm guitar with the silky acoustic behind it. But the song that really like made me be like, okay, let me tune into these songs a little more was definitely "Save the World." Um, Now I'm going to imagine, not that we really have to talk about the lyrics too much. I know it's a darker song, but I imagine it's like about like the fear of like school shootings, right? Just see we're on the same page.
Yes.
Somehow this was the most impressive part. It wasn't the measures of two he threw in. It wasn't even the chord voicings. How did he write the perfect music for a song about school shootings? I don't know how he did that, but it fits perfectly, and I was really impressed by that. Where like Pearl Jam's Rival, it just kind of feels kind of slapped together.
Yeah, I know for a song about school shooting, "Rival" from Pearl Jam is very silly sounding, which I think it's just because Stone Gossard wrote the music. Not
It
to throw
almost feels
shade
in
at
poor
Stone, but
taste with Rival.
yeah. So "Save the World" was the third single from the album, and I know when it was released, it kind of surprised a lot of people, me included, because I don't know how you describe the song musically, because like there's a sense of urgency to it, which I think is maybe where you're getting like it's a very music is the very fitting for the lyrics.
Right.
Um, but like I don't know that riff that plays throughout the song. First of all, I think it's an impressive riff, especially because he's playing it and singing at the same time. Um, I also don't know like I don't know, is it a little country? No, is it like just kind of straightforward rock? No, I don't know. It's a song even to this day. I don't know how to describe it musically, but like you said, it fits lyrics very well. As you guessed, it is. Yeah, it was. I think inspired by the Texas shooting that happened a couple of years ago, Uvalde. Um, because specifically the first lyric where he sings, um, "I didn't get a chance to check the news. Someone shot up a classroom again." When you said the cops just let him die, which I think is a direct quote from. Well, actually, in here it says on Genius, it says it was in response to the Robb Elementary School shooting. But I mean, there's been so many shootings since the song was probably written that it could really go out to any of them. Um, but yeah, like lyrically, as Jason Isbell and his wife, they have a young kid who's probably in school now, just started school not long ago. And as the song goes on, it just gets more and more like drastic and like harder hitting when he's singing lines about like in the second verse after the first chorus, the verse after the first chorus, he sings balloon popping at the grocery store, my heart jumping in my chest because you hear something that sounds like a gun and you're in a public place
Right,
and you
right.
start to have that fear of something bad that's about to happen. He's looking around for the exit door and yeah, it's very It's very dark, but I think it's an important topic we talk about on the podcast. Definitely, there's nothing on this album I would want to shy away from talking about because he sings a lot about, like you said earlier, a lot of these songs are kind of dark in nature and topic, but they're very like relatable. And again, something I missed about the song was the phrasing. I think maybe the phrasing, I did notice like the verses, the way the guitar melody interacts with the vocals, I think was very unique.
Yeah, he definitely plays on the offbeats a lot, which kind of makes that. I wouldn't call it a turnaround, but you know how like there's like the verse and he ends the verse with like a different rhythm, and he like playing on the offbeats, and it kind of adds to that anticipation, the kind of like, oh, where are we going, and we landed there. He was really good at doing a lot of little things like that that really kept me engaged. I feel like some of the songs that I didn't love as much on the album, that I would say are a little more of snoozers, would be the ones that, that didn't have that musical interest in it to me. And once again, like Cast Iron Skillet, I really do like that song still. I think the lyrics are great and I enjoy listening to it, but it is a little forgettable musically. So yeah, so for that reason, Save the World is one of my favorites. And, I think the lyrics are really great. It's, to me, it kind of sounds like he had a song that he wanted to write and he wrote it and said what he wanted to say, which I think as an artist is your goal. And it's not easy to do, but he seems like he really nailed it.
Let's not forget too that dual guitar solo at the end.
Yes. So a lot of these solos, for the most part, I did enjoy, but I would say my favorite guitar work has to be at the end of the album. And throughout the album, all the instrumental sections are really enjoyable to me. Especially the songs where they really layer things, like which one was it? It was it Vestavia Hills? There's just a lot of layering with guitars and
there's a lot of slide in that
strings.
song, and the strings and like the organ in the background.
I really enjoyed moments like that. So after you get like Save the World, Middle of the Morning, then I kind of feel like there was a little bit of a point where the song started to kind of blur a few times, like Volunteer and Vestavia Hills really did. I kind of feel like I've already heard the song on the album once or so. But when you get to the very end of the album, when you get This Ain't It and Miles, I really enjoyed the variety. And this was nothing like on the beginning of the album, which I thought was very interesting. And I feel like I probably would have enjoyed the album a little more if these songs were spread throughout. That being said, though, maybe my favorite song was Miles. Maybe.
So, okay, really quick to go back to what the first thing you said. My only little complaint on this album, because I have very few complaints, is the run of songs, Volunteer, Vestavia Hills, and White Beretta, the latter which I will be talking about later. They, on first couple listens, those three songs were really hard to get into because they were kind of the more straightforward acoustic songs. I know Volunteer maybe is in 6/8 time. I don't know if you picked up on that. I don't know if
I did. I think the drums really kind of saved that song.
Was Vestavia Hills 2 also in the same time signature? Maybe not. Kind of like a swing to it too. Not as much as Volunteer, but I know White Beretta is just I think it's just 4/4, but like all three are the more acoustic songs. Like there's slides and stuff like in Vestavia Hills and whatnot, and there's some some violin and Volunteer, but like it's those three, especially coming after When We Were Close, which I'm sure we'll talk about in a little bit, like kind of have the same kind of vibe, even though lyrically they're very different from one another. So those were the ones that were hardest for me to get into. And I would say Volunteer and Vestavia Hills are still the ones that I'm listening to more to like really digest everything about them, just because I feel like there's maybe less standout moments.
Well, I'll say this though. Volunteer, Volunteer is a little hard to get into. It's kind of a snoozer for the most part, but the chorus is good.
Yeah, the chorus is the best part to me in that song. Even though lyrically, I think the best lyrics are in the verses, but like musically, it's so much hookier in the chorus. Like the melody is very strong in the chorus.
Right. But I will say Vestavia Hills is one of my favorites, and I think because I think the production's so damn good on it compared to some of the other songs. Like I really dislike the production in Death Wish. The dynamics of the music is almost non-existent because you can't hear it.
Well, let's talk about
And
Deathwish really quick.
okay,
Like,
yeah, I have a lot to say about this. Okay,
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 and you know what? To
let
be
me lead
fair,
this front.
you will be happy to know that I'm sure most of what you're about to say is something that a lot of fans also had to say about it.
Okay, I'll say this. I'll say this. Okay, I mean, I
You're
like
going to disappoint
vocals.
Lita because this was her favorite on the album.
I know. I talked to her. I was telling her it's like I'm trying to listen to this album, but it's hard to get past the first song. So okay, I just can't not I can't ignore it. The vocals are just way too loud. And when I try to listen to the music underneath, the music's good. It is dynamic in ways. I like that there's toms in it, but the vocals are not very dynamic. I don't like the way his voice sounds on it. It really actually turned me off. And I much prefer his vocals on pretty much all the other songs. Um, I didn't love the vibe of it. It felt kind of like a 2000s kind of country pop song, which I don't mean that as a diss to that genre or anything. There's plenty of good ones. And something that really bothered me too is King of Oklahoma follows it. And it has like almost the same vocal cadence, rhythm to Death Wish. It's Death Wish Part 2. Oh my gosh.
Oh, see, I
Okay.
totally that's everything else. I can totally see your point, and even though I disagree with it, I'm like, yeah, but I totally disagree with that very last thing you said. I think the cadence and the the melody and like the vocals in King of Oklahoma are so different, and I would say better.
But it also just feels like he's kind of just saying da 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 da, like singing these lines again. I mean, he sings it less. I mean, he doesn't sing the song delicately, but he's not singing it as aggressively as Death Wish. And I do prefer King of Oklahoma. I like the lyrics more. Death Wish is just that is my least favorite off the album. Easy, easy.
Yeah, there's a lot of people that agree with you. When it first came out, people were disappointed with it. Maybe not so much production. They just didn't. Some people didn't like his vocals. They thought his voice was sounding like a little too rough, a little too
Annoying.
um.
Annoying.
I don't know if people use the word annoying, but like definitely like not gritty, but like the production, the vocals, people thought were like maybe a little too distorted. Um, I will say, I almost think the point of it is to be abrasive. And I think the only issue I have with it, maybe my other complaint on the album, small complaint, is that for an album opener and for a first single, it maybe isn't the best choice. Um, Maybe the album opener should have been King of Oklahoma, and maybe that should have even been the first single because Death Wish is really in your face. Vocally, maybe production wise, it's too loud. But I kind of think the more I listen to the album, the more I think it's done on purpose because, like, lyrically, which is kind of the one thing you didn't touch too much on for Death Wish, is I think it's very, like, it's a very somber song. I mean, he's talking about his significant other pretty much being suicidal. Um, and if you've been ever in that situation, with really anyone in your life, I think it's a song that we keep saying the word hits hard, but it does hit hard. Um, and I think the song maybe is so abrasive because that feeling that you have that he describes in the song feels that way to some people. And even someone who doesn't have that feeling but knows someone, that is close with someone that has those feelings, that's how it feels like to them. And there's lyrics in the song, like there's nothing I can say to her that I haven't already said. Like sometimes you feel kind of hopeless. And that's my only kind of explanation of why I think the song is so abrasive. And I'm going to keep saying that word because I, I, I
I mean,
don't think
I think that gritty guitar tone later does the job just fine.
I don't know. I feel like,
I don't think he needed made. I mean, this whole song just sounds like him shouting at this point.
well, I'm curious. Afterwards, I'm going to link you. Jack White did a cover of the song.
No way.
Yeah, like
No way.
a couple months after the album was released. And so to tell a quick story, there is a movie coming out by Martin Scorsese called the I want to get the name of the book right. Hold on. Um, hold on, sorry, I'm googling this. I tried to have this up earlier, but I kind of forgot. It's called The Killing of the Flower Moon. It's based off a book that I'm actually going to check out from the library here next week and read. And it's coming out in theaters later this year and on Apple TV. And it stars Leonardo DiCaprio and a bunch of other famous actors. But there's some cameos from Jack White, Jason Isbell, and another country star who his name is Sturgill Simpson. And I think by that time they were filming, like I'm assuming him and Jack White kind of became friends because they follow each other and they like each other's posts on like Instagram. And like, yeah, a couple months after Death Wish was out, Jack White did just an audio cover of him and acoustic guitar covering Death Wish. And a lot of people liked it better than the Jason Isbell version.
Yeah, I do feel like Jack White probably could pull it off in a way that I would probably enjoy more as well.
But I didn't like it more because I don't know, like I feel like it needs the harshness, so, at least some of it. Like I'm sure
Jack White's got kind of a harsh voice to begin with. That's why. I feel
he doesn't really sing it harsh. Actually,
interesting.
He sings it. Yeah, he kind of sings it more like he sings it so heartfelt, for sure. But he doesn't really have any harshness to it that he might in some of his solo songs or White Stripe songs. So I am curious how would you feel that how would you would rate that cover, but
well, link it to me later, and I'll get back to you.
I understand some of your reasons for not liking Death Wish. When it first came out, I wasn't the biggest fan. It's definitely grown on me a lot, and I think it's just because I really paid more close attention to the lyrics. That's kind of when it changed for me, and it made me overlook maybe the vocals being a little too loud. Maybe because it's also it is a little some of the songs on the album tend to repeat the chorus maybe one too many times. That said, if I really love the song, I don't see that as an issue.
And that's a big thing too, though. Is which I know I keep emphasizing the vocals and stuff, and that's not really the whole point of why I don't like the song. Just as a song too, I'm not as in love with the lyrics. It is repetitive, and I think a lot of the songs that I enjoy on this album really benefits from an instrumental break, whether it's a little short section, which is in a lot of these songs, just, maybe like 20 seconds, maybe. It's not even a whole like interlude. It's just a little break. But
Death
it feels
Wish
like
has it a little bit though.
But
near the end, maybe it was too late. There was a time.
Too late.
There's a time near the end where the strings kind of are more in the mix. It's like the very end. I think after.
But that's just an outro.
Yeah, but it's still nice. Maybe he needed it in the middle. I maybe agree there, but I'm shocked you didn't like King of Oklahoma more. And I will say, on first listen, I remember a lot of people loved King of Oklahoma. They were saying like it's one of my early favorites. When I first heard it, I was a little disappointed. I didn't like it as much as most people did. But then, like, especially over the last month, it's become one of my favorites. And again, it really has to do with the storytelling aspect. This time, it's actually like a story. Death Wish is more just like a straightforward song when it comes to like him and the relationships he has, and but like King of Oklahoma is definitely he's writing about a character who hurts their back, gets addicted to painkillers, loses their job, loses their wife, which is something that happens a lot, unfortunately, nowadays, at least in America. But like, it's the storytelling aspect that really catches me. But it's also the melody, which is why I was shocked you said it reminded you too much of Death Wish, because King of Oklahoma,
it was not the melody, but he's singing a lot of words and kind of in this faster pace. And the thing too is I do like King of Oklahoma. Don't get me wrong. But after 4.5 minutes of Death Wish, then to hear a song like King of Oklahoma, which has a long story, it's kind of a bit overwhelming because, at the end of after these two songs, that's almost 10 minutes of nonstop vocals. But King of Oklahoma, I think, standalone is a good song. It's kind of long, but it has a story. It also has the line, I was standing... What was it? I was emptying my bladder on a 20-foot ladder. That's pretty funny.
Yeah, that's a standout line a lot of people's had with that song.
Believe me, I did not miss that one on first listen. I got it.
But it's so like, I don't know. I love King of Oklahoma because of the lyrics. I also love the melody. He is singing a lot of words, but he has a melody.
Yeah, it
Like
works
it
a lot
goes
better than
higher,
Death
goes
Wish.
lower. Some of the way like some of like just on single words, like when he says, they ain't got a camera or a guard. The way he says guard, there's like a little like I don't know, like emphasis on the word that's just really cool. And like the way he delivers some of the lines, like shit's about to get real hard, or near the end where he says she's going back to Bixby, tired of trying to fix me, says I got some shit to figure out. He kind of like that last line, he kind of leaves a little space in between the words to really emphasize like the line that he's delivering, which I thought really helped the song. And this one has more instrumental breaks. There's times where he's soloing in between verses or choruses.
I mean, yeah, there still is for sure.
And I think the soloing is great on this song.
I guess kind of here's my thing with it. Is these first two songs are very fast paced. Even like Save the World. I almost called it Rival. Even Save the World, which has an intensity and this energy behind it, it's a little more spacious in it. And most of these songs do have a lot of space, which I actually think really works well. So it's just kind of weird to get, these two songs which have a lot going on constantly, and then to get like a good stream of songs that have a lot of breaks. I don't know. It was kind of interesting placement, and I think starting off the album with King of Oklahoma would have been better.
Did you like the chorus more though in King of Oklahoma than like Death Wish?
Oh yeah,
because it goes into like a halftime kind of feel.
Yeah, no, this song actually changes, which is nice.
Yeah, Death Wish does have the same progression the whole time. Like that, you can't argue that for sure. But yeah, King of Oklahoma has like verse, chorus, instrumental break. And I love the way he sings some of the like the chorus. Like she used to wake me up with coffee every morning. Like the way he sings coffee, he really holds out that note.
Yeah, when you hear that chorus, it's actually quite refreshing.
So you did briefly mention earlier, you liked If You Insist. Oh, well, you said like maybe on first listen you weren't blown away, but because of like the phrasing of the song, it made you appreciate it more.
Yeah, and I also liked there's like these really big swelling reverbs on like the lead guitars and the strings. I don't know if it's a fiddle. I'm not that educated on that.
Well,
I think there's like an organ in there too, and
talking about the fiddle, it's funny. Him and his wife have this like quote that they've used before, where they've said, the quote is, "It's a fiddle when you're buying it, but it's a violin when you're selling it."
That's kind of funny.
But yeah, continue with your description, because I swells is the perfect word to use for If You Insist.
Yeah. So I was just a string because I'm not that educated with it, so I don't want to mislabel it. But yeah, so there was a lot of things, subtle things that I really did enjoy about If You Insist, and it's one of those songs that is underwhelming, kind of like Volunteer and maybe Vestavia Hills to an extent. But I actually kind of like the production a lot more. Yeah, so like the lead guitar has these big swells and the strings. I think there's like an organ in there. It's a very vibey song. Typically when I say vibey, I think something maybe a little more modern sounding, but it is vibey.
But it has like nice driving, kind of this percussion sound I like to it.
Right. Yeah. That is something I like about the album, which I'm sure is part of the whole Americana type of like genre thing, is, kind of like these driving drums. They're not heavy, but they're kind of fast, I guess, is kind of a gross simplification.
Yeah, they are fast. Like the song seems faster than it probably is when you're playing it.
Right. Because the drums are filling in that space.
Yeah.
And I will say, this might be a little hard to explain, but you seem to really know this album front to back, so I'm sure you'll actually get what I'm talking about. So not like the very end, but kind of in the last maybe 3/4 of the song, definitely over halfway through, there's like a little instrumental bit where it's just kind of the band playing, and it has the big reverb still. They throw in one chord that is kind of easy to miss, but it's slightly out of the harmonic palette. Like I don't think it's out of key, but it's just kind of spicy, and it's just
I think I know
nice
what you're
detail.
talking about. Yeah, like it's maybe just what you would consider the bridge, because it's the time in the song that it does change. Like it goes to a third progression, right?
I think so, or at least there's like that one
just
variation.
Once. Yeah.
And
I know what you're talking about. It's very nice.
it's so easy to miss that if you're not paying attention. But I heard it and I was like, okay, that's cool. Those are the details I like to hear in songs.
Yeah, I do really like this song musically. It's kind of like Strawberry Woman, where it's very easy to listen to, but it's definitely a little darker than, not dark, but it's a little bit more like maybe depressing than Strawberry Woman, because like
Strawberry Woman's like, I know you said maybe maybe the goal of it was to kind of play up those tropes, so it's kind of a little cheesier.
but
But
this
I
one,
kind of ended up liking some of these more kind of laid back songs because they were enjoyable to listen to.
yeah,
Maybe they're not as strong of songs, but just sonically speaking, and I'm not critiquing the whole production on the album, but just literally hearing it was just pleasant.
yeah, and this is a song lyrically too I really enjoy. As I missed it on the first couple listens,
Some
but
relatable lines in it.
yeah. I think the most standout line to me is, "Do you crave a love that tears through your life like a Category 5?"
Yeah, what does that mean?
So like a hurricane, it has different categories.
Oh,
Five
gotcha.
being, I believe, the strongest type of hurricane you can have. And I don't really know this because lately I've been kind of getting into like hurricanes in a weird way. Um, yeah,
Sorry.
you go through these weird phases when you don't have a job. And that's a very powerful line. And then also the other line, "My mama spent every day alone in a house with noises and names. She got so tired of putting out the fire, she just laid down in the flames."
That was a good one. I'll tell you my favorite though.
I think, well,
Um,
yeah, tell me. I have a feeling I know what it is, but tell me.
I'm too tired to get excited, and I'm too old to be ashamed.
Oh, no, that's not what I would have expected you would have said, but that is a very good line. That's one that I didn't like, I missed on the first couple listens.
Yeah, it definitely was subtle, but when I finally heard it, I was like, oh wow, like that's a cool line. And once again, it's kind of one of those lines that I wouldn't be like, oh, that's a really unique, clever, creative line, but it's kind of like, oh, but that's a nice one. Like, wow, I don't know.
yeah, there's a lot of lines in this, like a lot of kind of singular lines I love. Just kind of the chorus, if you insist on being lonely, let me put you in a cab. It's kind of, the drums drive this kind of urgency about these like two people who are like, either we need to like get together and spend our days together, or let's just totally become strangers and never see each other again. But something I missed on the first couple listens is he said he wrote this through a woman's perspective,
Interesting.
instead of like, a guy's perspective of a relationship. And you can get that with the lyric. We can talk about the rain, how it can't seem to stop. Something stupid like a football game, or I can tell you where to shop. Now, I didn't get that as he was writing from the woman's perspective because, I'm not sexist. Like you don't have to, be a woman to know where to shop or to think a football game's stupid. But it wasn't until he mentioned that the song is through a woman's perspective that some of these lines make a little bit more sense,
Yeah.
So,
I will say too something that maybe I didn't really realize as much until like right now as I pull up the lyrics is I did like the line, if you insist on being lonely, let me leave you to your drink. But I didn't really realize the last time he says it, we're running out of options, I'll wait outside the door. If you insist on being lonely, I might wait a minute more.
yeah,
That was really cool just to read that.
he changes every time. I mean,
Right.
the
I
other
noticed he
time,
changed it, but
if you, I've told you all my jokes. If you insist on being lonely, can you leave a couple smokes? Yeah, that's a really cool moment, and I like how it's after Save the World, so it's a little bit of a calm down. Then after If You Insist, you get Cast Iron Skillet, which we've talked about. But then we ramp it up, really for only one song, which again is my small gripe about the album, is after When We Were Close, you get like 3 acoustics. But when We Were Close, very rock song, maybe the most aggressive on the album, I would say, besides like Death Wish. But that's kind of more production aside. Like, I just feel like the music and how hard hitting When We Were Close are. I was kind of curious if this is one you were gonna like or not like.
okay, so I have a list of things for you, and maybe I'll just run through the list, and then maybe we can break it down. Okay, so let me I'll tell you when I'm done with it. Okay, so it kind of sounds like a riff you would write, especially with a little melody line at the end. And honestly, some of these more rock songs, I'm almost could for some reason they kind of remind me of maybe like a Ryan Adams song that I've heard before. Um, I like the lyrics, but it feels a little generic. And I want you to explain to me the whole like kind of chorus tag, the Bound for Glory bit. Um, okay solo, but it ends pretty cool. He says a line about slap another B string. And I mean, for those of you who play guitar, it seems kind of odd that he's mentioning the B string. But that being said, though, me being a big Les Claypool fan, I'm just imagining him on his 6-string bass hitting that low B string. So that from my own personal experience, that's kind of funny. And then the organ in there, even though it's kind of almost in the way, it's kind of oddly tasteful. Okay, that was all my comments spewed out in a big blur.
But, okay, well, so musically, I found this I totally get your Ryan Adams reference, and without getting too much into Ryan Adams, because there's going to be probably a heated debate for another day, but Ryan Adams and Jason Isbell, they did have a history. They were friends. Now they're not friends. This song does remind me of a couple Ryan Adams songs, but it reminds me of when Ryan Adams was doing like his Tom Petty sound. So this song gives me kind of Tom Petty vibes.
Ryan Adams has a Tom Petty sound?
Oh, yeah. And Jason Isbell does too sometimes. Now, this era of Tom Petty is not one you've heard much from before, which is his album Long After Dark, which you might know the single from it called You Got Lucky.
Yeah, I know that
there's other songs on that album that are kind of this kind of darker, heavier, crunchier sound. So it gives me kind of that vibe, which I've copied before in my own song. So I see why you might. Especially that melody you're talking about, that main like that main little riff after.
That's a classic Rico move right there.
Now lyrically, this song, you said it's generic, but it's
I think the song as a whole felt generic,
but it's the lyrics in this song. I get what you're saying. The lyrics in this song, though, maybe the most specific on the album, one of the most, because this song is about a singer-songwriter whose name was Justin Townes Earl. And he also played similar
as we speak.
He also played similar music to Jason. They played together sometimes. They had some shows where they played together. He kind of did country Americana music as well. He unfortunately passed away. I want to say maybe like the year before COVID, 2019, maybe 2020, from an overdose. And so the first lyrics about him dressing his Sunday best is because I guess as a person, he loved to like really dress nice for any show he would perform. And there's even a line where the shirt costs more than his guitar. And then you get to the chorus where he's talking about you were bound for glory and grown to die, but why wasn't I? Jason Isbell, they both lived reckless lives at points. They both were addicted to their own drug of choice. They both had close death encounters, but unfortunately, Justin is the one who died from his. Jason Isbell got clean, got sober. He has been for a while now, thanks to his wife, his daughter, stuff like that. So Jason Isbell in the course of the song is kind of questioning, like, why were you the one to die? Like, why wasn't I? Why wasn't I the one out of the two of us to die?
Okay, that makes a lot more sense. Now that you explain that, I feel kind of silly. I didn't read up any backstory. I feel like most of these songs the lyrics because of all the backstories.
No, I didn't know this story either. I had to find about it on Reddit from other people.
And I'm not saying that because you have to look up the backstory to appreciate them more. I'm not saying that's a bad thing or anything. But I just kind of assumed, I know you said it was his like wife plays fiddle or whatever. So I was like, I wonder if this is about maybe his wife or just about a partner, like they're like musicians. But that actually makes perfect sense now that you explain this. And now I understand the Bound for Glory and Grown to Die line.
Yeah, and it's
kind of the only part where they talk about that's the only thing that really talked about their death or anything. Well, I mean, he says I was the worst of the two of us, but I wasn't able to tell that's about like.
Okay, so let's get into verse 3 and 4 really quick. There's a lyric where he's talking about how Justin's daughter, not Jason Isbell's daughter.
Wait a minute.
How he saw a picture of Justin's daughter and how he's hoping that she'll remember how he smiled. But then there's the really devastating line, but she probably wasn't old enough the night somebody sold you stuff that left you on the bathroom tiles.
I retract what I said. I forgot about this section.
Yeah, very dark line.
I'm sorry.
And then even more dark, verse 4, got a picture of you dying in my mind with some ghost you couldn't bear to leave behind, which I think is very much referencing like his death. And then the line that you like that you mentioned happened in real life. Jason was watching him at doing a set where he snapped a B string and he just finished off the set just with the 5 strings instead of the 6. And then you get that cool little moment where there's an added bar before that second chorus where he sings, and for a minute there, you're still alive, which I think is great musically. Like he gives you an extra moment to kind of build up into that second chorus. And then the very last reference is on the last chorus, he sings, but the Fort Worth Blues wasn't through with us. That's actually a reference to Justin's dad, Steve Earle Jones, who is another famous kind of country Americana singer, songwriter.
So let me just say,
it's a lot to take in. It's a lot. There's a lot of lore to it for sure.
Well, I was just say this. So there's a lot of things I missed in this song, or so I wish I was a little more prepared for that. I don't want to say I didn't listen to it a few times, but I definitely, I guess, overlooked it, to be frank.
Well, because musically, you're not wrong. Musically, it is very, it's kind of like a Tom Petty rock song, which doesn't always mean a lot of changes or a lot of different things going on. So you're not wrong in that sense. But yeah, it's a very emotional, heavy song lyrically.
Which I wouldn't have thought that on first listens, as you clearly saw.
But yeah, so maybe when you go back and listen to that song, if you ever do, maybe you'll have a more higher appreciation for it.
Yeah, I definitely will see it in a new light for sure. So
really quick, we were gonna move on from the song, right?
Yeah, I was gonna. Yeah.
We're already an hour into this podcast, so apologize to people listening, but we're gonna keep going on because I do think this album is. It's long. It's a 60-minute album. Some of the songs are long, and the last couple of songs we have to talk about are some of the longer ones on the album. But as Tony kind of mentioned earlier, they seem to pique his interest the most. So it's going to be a long episode. So apologize in advance.
Okay. I know that you want to talk about White Beretta, which is a song worth talking about. But I guess I kind of have less to say about that one. But there's I want to talk about Miles. I have a few comments about that. And there's one thing I want to talk about. This Ain't It. Maybe let's crank that one out real quick. Now, to me, that one is just kind of a fun riff song. Like with all the songs, I think he definitely spent time writing the lyrics. I don't think there's anything that I would say is close to filler. It seemed like that one had kind of more lightweight lyrics. I didn't really dive into them, frankly. But I had one particular comment. By the way, it's one of my favorites just because of the extended instrumental sections and guitar work. Like I said, a lot of the instrumentals in this album I really enjoy. The musicianship, kind of the blend of instruments. But something that kind of bothered me, and I'm not the biggest production guy. I don't know that much about production, frankly. But something about the backup vocals in it, just they fit kind of awkward. I didn't actually like them.
The vocals themselves or the production?
Just like I'm talking about, like I'm not sure who's singing the backups in there, but it's like a lady.
Yeah, it's his wife, Amanda Shires.
Who? Amanda?
Yeah, Amanda Shires is her name. Yeah, his wife.
Okay. Yeah, it's just I don't know if their voices just didn't blend well. It kind of sounded like maybe they're doing like a unison thing at parts. I didn't like it. It wasn't particularly.
How funny! That's one of my favorite moments of the song.
I mean, maybe it'll grow on me. I don't know.
Yeah, this is a song. It's actually, I think, one of the other more straightforward songs. First of all, lyrically, it's very simple. It's just a song about a father who maybe was distant from his daughter, and now his daughter's kind of like getting in some deep shit, and like the father's trying to give her advice, even though he acknowledges that he doesn't give great advice and how he wasn't always around for her. So lyrically, it's not super dense. It does have some great lines. I do like the line where he says, "Remember how I fucked you up." It's just delivered perfectly. but musically, this song, and he has said it kind of pays more homage to like post Southern rock sound, and he kind of gives nods to the Allman Brothers and Leonard Skinner.
Well, I remember. I mean, I definitely see the. I mean, I've never heard anyone say post Southern rock. That's hilarious for some reason to me, but
Well, that's what
it
he
totally
said in
makes
an
sense.
interview. That's what he said.
But it's interesting that you bring up kind of a nod to the Allman Brothers, Leonard Skinner, because you actually were telling me, sent me an article that he actually bought a very expensive guitar that was owned, I believe, by one of the Allman Brothers, or no, I think it was one of the Leonard Skinner players. So that's kind of cool to see that not only is he kind of giving a nod, but
I think
he's
he
deep
uses
in
it on
there.
the song too.
Oh, he does actually. Okay, that's
Yeah.
sick.
So yeah, so it's just a fun kind of rock song. Yeah, there's a little twang maybe in like the vocals. I really like his wife's
Yeah,
backing
the
vocals.
twang was a bit much, but it was fitting. That's why I didn't call it out. It fit the song.
And I feel like he's kind of doing a more of a Southern rock voice, like a Leonard Skinner or Allman Brothers, because he adds a lot of grit to his voice in the choruses. Like he almost like you can almost hear him like right before he's about to sing in the choruses, which I enjoy because he doesn't do that in all his songs. He actually, especially on the slower acoustic songs on this album, his voice is way more calm and smooth. But there are some moments like on Death Wish, this song, Middle of the Morning, where he does more of like a loud vocal performance. And I tend to like those because I think it gives the album some dynamics.
See, I kind of prefer his kind of a little more softer singing, but yeah, I really like
some people agree with you,
but I did really like the vocals on like I'm so sorry, what was it called, Save the World. I like them on there. I do like it on This Ain't It just because it's, especially after like White Beretta, like it's just a fun intentional delivery. And I mean, really the only song I didn't like the vocals on was Death Wish.
Death Wish, yeah.
I don't know what he was doing on that one, but no, I do like his energetic singing, and I like that variety that he's giving throughout the album.
Yeah, so yeah, This Ain't It. It's a very, there's not a lot to talk about other than I just think it's a really fun song. And actually it's one of my favorites on the albums because I just love how you kind of get one more last fun rock song before it closes with Miles, which I think is that one we're gonna have a lot to talk about. But yeah, like
which I'm ready to dive in.
Yeah, well, This Ain't It's just a really fun song. It was great live. He's been using it to close out his shows recently.
What?
Yeah, he when I saw him live a couple weeks ago, courteous to Lindsay, she won us tickets through Amoeba record store.
How is she always winning tickets? How? Please tell me.
It was, I don't know, but it was really fun show. And he played like a majority. There's only, I think, 3 songs from this album he didn't play live. When I saw him.
Wow.
And unfortunately, a week later, he played in Seattle and he jammed with Mike McCready on stage during This Ain't It. So I am sad I missed that, but our show was great. I do want to really quickly talk about White Beretta. There's going to be more from me to say than you because you said you weren't, maybe wasn't a standout. And I will say, on first listen, White Beretta was my least favorite. It was the most forgettable to me.
I will say this: it's not that I didn't bother to look into it or anything like that, but and it's not that I'm trying to think of the best way to phrase it. I think it probably is one of the better written songs on the album, but yeah, it doesn't stand out, and unfortunately, I didn't really have as much time maybe to dive into it. I didn't spend as much time as I should have, but there was definitely things I picked up. I think the lyrics are really well written. And I just want to point out that I think my favorite line is, "If his love is unconditional, why do I feel so miserable?" I thought that was fantastic in there. And he sounds great on the track, and the production sounds great. So it's just one that I think I'm going to have to spend some time with. I know I will like it a lot, and I'm sure it'll be one of my favorites. But
and what made me love the song so much was getting the background of what the song's about. And do you have any idea what the song might be about?
Well, okay. A couple comments, and I'm going to be vulnerable here. I'm sorry if I sound like a dummy. Okay, so I understand that a Beretta is a gun, right? But I got kind of fooled because I remember the Tragically Hip. I had no idea that El Dorado was a car. So I looked it up, and a Beretta is also a car.
Yes.
But this song doesn't seem like a car song. But he does say he was sitting at a red light. So I'm not quite sure what Beretta is referring to. As you can tell, I probably do not know all the lyrics very well. But I will say, though, I'm sure the song's got a lot to do with like religion.
Religion is a small aspect of it. So
only a small.
Jason Isbell does one of the things that he does best, which is he takes a very serious topic and kind of disguises it by mentioning details like being in a white Beretta, a very specific car.
Oh, okay.
There's even a lyric where he says, I was 19 years old in 1998, which is like the time frame of the song. And then he names the song White Beretta, but the song is a true story of when he was a teenager and he took his girlfriend at the time to go get an abortion. Yeah. So like the second you hear that, the lyrics start to click. Yeah. And I was going to, we're talking about a very serious subject, so we're not trying to make light of it, but Ben Folds, who, to all your Ben Folds fans out there, next month, the podcast is going to be really heavy. I can't say the word.
Heavily
leaning into Ben Folds for some of the episodes, and we'll explain that later. But yeah, Ben Folds 5's most famous song, most popular song was "Brick," which was a very similar story about Ben taking his girlfriend at the time to get an abortion. And in this song, though, it's slightly different because there is mention about religion. He sings about how he was raised in the church. And the line that you like so much, if his love is unconditional, why do I feel so miserable? It's about God. It's about, if he's supposed to forgive us, like, why do I feel so miserable? And then the lyric after is, why are you digging your nails in the styrofoam? Which to me, you picture this teenage girl with like maybe a styrofoam cup of coffee waiting in the hospital. Because there's a lyric later on where he sings the line, I'm sorry you had to go in that room alone. Because I'm sure when he took her, they didn't let him in, just her. And he talks about like regret in the song, but he specifically says it's not about shame. It's about, and like in the chorus, it's very heartfelt. He says, he didn't know better, but that is an excuse. He thanks her, but he's sorry for everything she had to go through. Really heartbreaking line. I thank you for your grace, for the dreams we got to chase, for what you chose to do. It's a very.
I like the line, which makes a lot more sense now. I could have been somebody's father. I couldn't boil a pot of water. Like, obviously, I knew it was a sad line, and I think I got the gist of it anyways.
Yeah.
But that makes a lot of sense. And quick question, relevant to this. So, is there anything such as a casual Jason Isbell fan? Because it seems like most of these songs, to fully appreciate them, you have to like know the lore.
Well, no. I think for any band, you don't have to be a super fan, but there are songs where I do think you have to dig deep, whether that is maybe listening to an interview, or nowadays it's as simple as going to genius.com, looking at the lyrics, and then reading the annotations.
Or like you said, just going on Reddit, seeing what other people are saying.
Yeah, so you could still you can like this song just for the acoustic guitar, how pretty it sounds, how passionate his vocals are in the chorus, which are all valid reasons to like this song. But then there are some lyrics that, like for example, in verse 2, he sings, sitting at a red light, listening to Sun Vault, may the wind take your troubles away. Now, I didn't know this, but Sun Vault is a band.
I imagined.
They're a band that he was listening to back in 1998 when the song takes place during, and May the wind take your troubles away, I believe is it's a lyric from one of their songs called Windfall. And funny enough, not funny, but in a thoughtful way, the music that he played before his band went on concert, like after the opening band, one of the songs was that song from Sun Vault. And I only knew that because during the song, I heard the lyric, may the wind take your troubles away.
Oh wow. Well,
But
that's kind of cool then.
it works great in a double way because not only is he mentioning the song specifically, but the lyric "May the wind take your troubles away" is a very like kind of calming, soothing line, which he probably was listening to for a specific reason during this time in his life that was hard for him, and then even harder for his girlfriend at the time. So
That's kind of wild because
yeah, there's just so many layers. There's so many layers to these songs, and once I learned that about this song, even though it's not relatable to me in any way, I just found it so heartfelt and so just I don't know, just it's so well done. And I was very happy he played this when I saw him a couple weeks ago. And yeah, it literally went from being like my least favorite song on the album to top 5. That's how this song and King of Oklahoma were the ones that jumped for me the most. And I do think this song, if you do listen to this album again in the future, could end up being one of your favorites. But
I'll listen to 12 of the 13 songs from this album again.
but we have one last song to talk about. I'm gonna let you kind of carry it for a lot of it, not because I don't have a lot to say, but we've been going on for a while. Last song on the album is Miles, and it sounds like it was maybe your favorite, and I'm not surprised because if I had to pick one, this was going to be the one I picked as your favorite.
And okay, I hope it. Okay, I'm gonna be real. This is also one I haven't really dived into the lyrics. And I'm sorry, it's not that I know you told me definitely look at the lyrics, and I did look at all of them, and I definitely did like find standout lines and kind of maybe piece together maybe what the song's about. But I kind of expected that you would kind of explain it to me. Not saying I just want to know. It's not like I didn't do any lifting here. But for me, the big thing about the song that I really enjoyed is I had mentioned the album. It kind of goes into different sections. Starts off kind of like these more kind of like pop songs, I would almost say. Not like actually pop, but I don't know. And then you got this kind of middle section where there's a lot of kind of more, I mean, the whole album's acoustic-y, but kind of more acoustic-y, folky stuff. And the end, it gets kind of rock for these songs. And this song actually kind of transcends, as it goes along. The song starts off immediately. I think about Neil Young.
Yes. Well, okay. I get a lot of people got Neil Young from the song, but yeah, I totally get the Neil Young. It kind of has like a Down by the River jam.
Exactly. The exact song I was thinking about. Or even. Go ahead.
But no, you go. Which one?
I was gonna say even I think it's like kind of the same progression as like Breathe from Pink Floyd, I think is the one.
Oh, okay. I don't know.
Not that it actually sounds like Pink Floyd, but they go that type of jam stuff.
Some people thought the verses of this song sounded like Mary Jane's Last Dance by Tom Petty, and I kind of now hear that too. Especially then the chorus, it gets a little bit more melodic. You have this kind of like, I don't know this song, what key is in. I think Mary Jane's Last Dance is E minor.
That's an A minor.
A minor. That's what I meant to say. But this one maybe is like, I don't know if it's D minor, but anyway, it kind of has a similar progression as well.
Yeah, okay, I can kind of see that loosely, but to me, yeah, I'm not trying to, it's sometimes very easy to find very specific songs that things sound like, but the chorus kind of sounded more like an Elliott Smith or an Elliott Smith thing, or no, like
I would have never gone there.
No, there's a melody, doesn't there, that sounds exactly like when Phoebe Bridgers does the pissing contest line.
Oh yeah, actually, wow!
There's that exact melody in there, which is an Elliott melody as well that I've heard.
I would have never. Yeah, you're right. It's okay. So in the chorus of Miles, it's the line where he says, "The way you catch a stranger in your neck." He goes like, "Stranger in your neck," like that.
Yes, exactly.
And he does it again when he says Disneyland in the second chorus.
Yeah, and the Elliott thing I'm mentioning is that he goes to like some I'm not sure if it's in the key of D, but like a D over F sharp, like an inversion like that. And it's a very Elliott Smith like movement. Now, obviously, this is a very specific over analysis of it. I'm not saying it sounds just like him or anything like that at all. Don't get me wrong there. But yeah, so it was cool that it kind of reminded me of some of artists I like. And then even kind of even better. So you kind of have like Neil Young jam. You get kind of almost even like I'm not trying to just call out every artist I'm thinking about, but kind of that solo, kind of maybe like kind of a George Harrison sounding thing.
Definitely the slide. Yeah, that helps.
with the bright guitar, kind of the I don't know, like even the progression kind of is a very neutral, free. But then the song starts to sound like Led Zeppelin.
I'm talking about the ending or
Yes,
like
where it
the
gets
end section where it totally like goes into almost a different type of song,
yeah, where you
like
get
a part B.
that like open tuning on the acoustic. At least it sounds like it kind of very, very, very Zeppelin sounding to me. Like I'm waiting for Robert Plant to start ad libbing.
And then there's some great guitar licks too during that section that
Oh
remind me almost
yeah,
like Radiohead, like that. It's very yeah. I don't know how to describe it. It's very cool.
I'm not as
Very
familiar with Radiohead, so I wouldn't have picked up on that. But I'm definitely gonna listen back and keep that in mind.
yeah. It's and then there's like a little instrumental break that leads him back into a chorus for the very last time to end the song, kind of more on a gentle note.
Which I think was a nice touch. Kind of as I've we all love a long jam for an outro, but I have really appreciated when bands kind of do go back. It's kind of like uh our elementary school music teacher, Mr. Minshew. I believe you said that he had mentioned that bands are kind of lazy when they just fade out a song.
Yeah, that's
Um,
true. Yeah,
which
there's
I
no fade
mean,
outs on this album, I don't think. Maybe this ain't it. This ain't it actually might be a fade out now that I think about it. I cannot remember.
yeah, sounds like it is. Fade out on the
But
sick guitar licks.
yeah, but yeah, there's I do really appreciate that. Um
And it was interesting too because I mean that outro in Miles, the Zeppelin bit, goes on for quite some time, but it was in a way, even though it was the same section, it was very refreshing somehow. Um but yeah, I like that song. It goes a lot of places. It has a lot more kind of like old school rock stuff. And I'm not saying that I'm viewing this album as someone that, can only see through rock and roll eyes, but I don't know. It was kind of nice that it was kind of something I was a little more familiar with, but to see him deliver it in a very Jason Isbell way was cool.
yeah, and
Very
I can
cool.
give a little bit of background to the story or to the song.
In
Um
the song or like the lyrics,
Both.
both. Okay.
He mentioned in an interview that he wrote like a 4 minute Jason Isbell song. And then he was like, well, maybe there should be more to it. So then he kind of approached it, he said, as if Neil Young was fronting Paul McCartney in the Wings. So almost as like Neil Young was like playing Band on the Run or something,
Yeah.
which I definitely get
Okay.
Neil Young. And
Sums it up.
he's definitely a Neil Young fan, maybe even more so a fan of Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young, because David Crosby was a very influential person for Jason Isbell, and they played together a lot, especially the very couple last years of David Crosby's life before he
Whoa,
passed
whoa,
away.
whoa. Whoa, Jason Isbell was just jamming with David Crosby?
Yeah, they
Wild.
yeah they would hop on each other's songs during concerts and
So
stuff,
how
and
have I never heard of this guy except only from you? Like even though it
because
was a few years ago.
he's
But
not
at this but he's jamming with David Crosby?
yeah because he doesn't have songs on country radio or any country or any music charts. Unfortunately, he's not that well known to have that status, but he's very much well respected.
He's kind of seems like the sorry, the country Jack White. Like
But
just
even less because
always
I
with
feel like
artists, liked by everyone.
Jack White has a little bit more, I feel like, notoriety just because he has songs that have like hit number one, like
Right,
Seven
right.
Nation Army and you know Raconteurs and all the different bands. And then um what I was going to say was that the song, it's okay. So on his last two albums, even last three, he's kind of had a thing about ending his albums with like a ballad. The album,
Boo.
this last album before this one, Reunions, ends on a ballad about his daughter called Letting You Go. And the premise of the song is like one day she's going to grow up and go live on her own and he's going to have to let her go. Very relatable song for a lot of people, especially a lot of dads who have daughters growing up. But it doesn't relate to me, and it was a ballad. It's not a bad song. It just doesn't hit me. Was never a big fan. Before that ends with a song called Something to Love. which is a song that kind of, again, he wrote about his daughter who was even younger at the time. And it was like him giving her advice about when you grow up, find something you love and do it until you're gone, which is a great relatable message for everyone and anyone. But again, it just musically wasn't. I don't like I don't like albums to end with like slower songs. So this album, when I read some people's reviews of the song about it being about his daughter again, partially, I was like, here's another ballad. But when the song starts, I'm like, oh, okay, it's kind of got this like minor tone, chord progression, kind of jammy, kind of sounds like, yeah, mixed between like Neil Young and Tom Petty and stuff. And lyrically, it's kind of about his relationship with his daughter and wife. There's the lyrics where he's talking about there's miles between us. And I think that's just part of Jason Isbell's specific relationship with his wife and kids, about how when he tours, there's physically they're miles apart, but like also in a like, using that as like a analogy for their relationship, how the relationship feels like miles apart. And then in the second verse, he's singing about it's like him looking into the future, and he's like, my daughter will be driving in the fall. And as she leaves, I tell her, don't get hurt and don't get pregnant, which is a line that kind of jumps out at you. Like you're not expecting that line, but it is very Jason Isbell. And then there's a line where he references like his daughter when she was younger, asking her dad, oh, is this carnival? Is it like Disneyland? Which I think is like talking about like the innocence, But then you get the bridge, which is that Led Zeppelin part you talked about, where it gets more to like this universal message about survival and forgiveness, and about like, taking your anger and lashing out at the kid at the grocery store, and how we clip each other's wings, and how it's hard to keep kids on track. And it gets to this very like aggressive parts of life. And it totally does like a 180 on the song. And I love it because he goes from his personal relationships with his daughter and wife, and then makes it more universal about adults in general, about human beings in general. And I think it's just such a, nice, fresh breath of air to get this in a song that could have literally just been another song about his daughter or another song about his wife.
Yeah, he's definitely a family man. I will say in the name of survival part, that part, I like the way he sings that. It sounds very cool, even just the word survival. And
it's the music.
Right. And it is a nice change from the beginning of it. It's kind of it kind of feels totally like just a rock song in that way. Like it just sounds cool, which not that he sounds lame throughout the album, but it was just like, oh, he's kind of badass, right? Like I don't know.
No, for sure. And the way he screams out some of the lyrics, especially the part near the end where he says, "In the name of forgiveness, we get bored," and he just holds out that note for a long time. Like, yeah, it's fantastic. And I love Miles. Miles is my second favorite song. Like, even though like musically it's so much more impressive than like Cast Iron Skillet. Cast Iron Skillet, just the lyrics, I don't know. The story is just, it's perfectly told. I like that one the most. But Miles is my second favorite. It's just, it takes a song that would have been a great song even without that middle section. It would have been a nice 3 to 4 minute song, but that middle section turns it into like a 10 out of 10 song.
Yeah, I will say that middle section there felt like a reward for listening to the album. Like for me personally, and this is not because I don't appreciate country or Americana. It's not anything like that. But it's like a 60-minute album, and there's a lot of stuff that I'm not used to, not necessarily the most interested in from a very surface level aspect. So kind of for the last song to be kind of like a nod to like Neil Young and the Zeppelin sounding bit, like that on a personal level was really cool to me, because I was like, okay, this is my reward for listening to the whole album all the way through.
Yeah, and I'm not surprised that that's how you kind of felt about it, because the way I thought about this album for you is, I was like, okay, even if he doesn't enjoy a majority of it, I know he's going to like the last song, Miles, because I know the change in the middle is going to pique your ears. So like, I was like, at least he'll like the last song. So like, at least even if he disliked the the rest of the album, he's gonna at least like one song. But it sounds like you liked more than that. It sounds, it sounds like you really liked, the lyrics in Cast Iron Skillet. It sounds like you
Well,
liked,
I like the album. I like the whole album
yeah,
except Death Wish.
you really like Save the World, which he opened the show with that song, and it's a
Whoa,
great opener.
that's a bold opener.
It is, but it's even more bold than like Death Wish because it's like a statement song, kind of. It's not even really a statement song because the chorus he's singing like he's looking to someone in particular to help save his world, But
Right.
it's the most, I would say, like one of the most political songs on the album. But yeah, I mean, it sounds like we liked a lot of the same songs. And I'm telling you that my favorite album of the year so far.
Yeah, I don't think it would be my favorite. I guess my favorite, I guess, would be. I don't know. It's hard to pick. I feel like most of the albums that have come out this year, there's definitely some songs I'm not in love with. That goes for the Ben Folds, the Queens of the Stone Age. Foo Fighters one's kind of interesting because you and I kind of agreed about it being maybe kind of underdeveloped, kind of half-baked in ways. But I guess for me, I'd probably say the Ben Folds is probably my favorite overall. I think the strong moments on there are really strong for me, and I definitely am appreciating some of the ones I'm not in touch with as much. I am appreciating those ones more slowly. But no, I did like this album though. Did I like it as much as I was expecting to? I guess so, but I didn't really know exactly what to expect. I expected a vibe that the album had, and I was mostly right. I was not expecting this, Miles to be so rock. But no, I appreciate you giving me this album. You weren't kidding. He really is a fantastic songwriter, lyricist. It's really cool to see an album that is content front to back. Even Death Wish that I didn't really care for. You can tell he put thought into it. The lyrics weren't bad. The music wasn't bad. Yeah, and so as a songwriter, I have to really respect him, and his as a musician, he's got chops. Those couple live clips you sent me from the when you saw him in concert, very cool.
Yes, and if anyone still has the chance to go see him live on this tour, I highly recommend it. It was my second time seeing him live. My first full show of his, the first time was a festival show, and he knocked it out of the park. Great. He has a great band, which we didn't. This whole time we really.
I was going to ask you
him, but like his 400 unit band, they're all great for sure.
Why are they called that? I need to know.
Oh, I had to look it up. The name actually stems from, I guess this is the name they used for a man, I can't talk today.
Psychiatric unit.
Ward. Yeah. Ward. In Alabama. It was originally called the 400 unit. So yeah.
It had like a 400 capacity or something?
It said it was originally called the 400 unit because it was in a separate building from the main 3-story hospital.
Oh, okay. That makes sense. 400.
Yeah. So that's where the band gets the name. But yeah, the band's talented. We didn't really talk about them too much in the episode. Episode's already like over an hour long. So we appreciate the people who stuck it out for the whole time. It was so long because I wanted to review the album myself as someone who's a big Jason Isbell fan. Maybe it's my second favorite of his of all time so far. My favorite of the year. Probably will end up being my favorite of the year. So this was kind of an album for album episode where Tony gets his first taste, but then also a chance for me to review the album for the podcast. So we appreciate those who, stuck it out for the long haul. Definitely go get the album and listen to, whether you know Jason Isbell or not. Go see him live if you can. And I think that'll be it for this episode. I might give you a Jason Isbell album in the future for another podcast album for album episode. We'll see, but
probably be Southeastern, whatever it's called.
Maybe, I don't know, because my favorite is Something More Than Free. So I might give you that one. But
okay, fair.
I have a lot of time until then to decide because I have a lot of other albums that will come before then. But yeah, our next episode, which should probably also be released by the time that people are listening to this episode, will be Tony's album for album recommendation of the Zombies album, Odyssey and Oracle. So stay tuned for that episode. And until then, we hope everyone takes care, and you'll be hearing from us soon. Bye-bye.